Hollywood's ultimate survivor, her fashions have inspired breathless imitation and provoked relentless criticism. Elizabeth Taylor, a fashion biography. From the day she first bounded into the Hollywood spotlight at the age of 12, Elizabeth Taylor has reinvented herself and her image time and time again. The results have often helped redefine modern fashion. A strikingly unique child star, a glamorous, trend-setting young adult, a fashion heretic in middle age, a timeless classic today. Taylor has been hailed as the most beautiful woman of the century and derided as the worst-dressed star in Hollywood. But through it all, one thing has remained constant: her stubborn rejection of conventional trends and her adherence to a bold, personal style utterly unlike anyone else's. A style as unique as her extraordinary violet eyes.
The first time that I saw her, I was speechless. I'd heard about the violet eyes, I had heard about her flawless complexion, but it was still a shock to look at those violet eyes because they looked like wild violets. In a field near a stream, they had a sparkle. I couldn't believe it.
Just like her fashions, Elizabeth's beauty has never conformed to popular standards. The 9-year-old was so different from the cute, perky child stars of the 40s that she was dropped from her first contract at Universal when the casting director decreed that her eyes were too old. But the ambitious youngster realized she could use her unique assets to achieve stardom on her own terms. And she was right.
Elizabeth was perfect as a child. I mean, that was the beginning of it for Elizabeth.
The following year, with the help of her mother, former actress Sarah Taylor, Elizabeth won a contract with glamorous MGM. But ever the rebel, she refused to allow studio makeup experts to lighten her raven hair, reshape her heavy eyebrows, or remove her trademark mole. At 11, desperate to win a starring role written for a slightly older girl, Taylor put herself on a rigorous diet and exercise regime, trying to grow 3 inches and develop the body of a teenager.
Can't help it, Father. I'd sooner have that horse happy than go to heaven.
Her determination impressed the studio, won her the coveted lead in National Velvet, and shot her to stardom.
You used to be a lot of fun. Then all of a sudden you turned into an old sober side.
In the immediate post-war era, MGM churned out wholesome movies idealizing the American family, and Elizabeth's roles in Little Women, Cynthia, and A Date with Judy captured the essence of the all-American teenager. A stickler for control, she had a hand in everything to do with her image, especially makeup and wardrobe. Now MGM's top teenage actress, Elizabeth was painfully aware that such stars usually fade when they reach adulthood. So she threw herself into the craft of glamour, transforming herself into an adult beauty despite her youth. Even Hollywood old-timers were stunned by the results.
I was having lunch with Clark Gable in the MGM commissary, and Gable, who had the heartiest appetite of anyone I've ever known in my life, had a piece of steak halfway to his mouth, and he just dropped it like that. And he says, "Who in the hell is that?" I turned around, and I looked, and I said, "That's Elizabeth Taylor."
By 18, Taylor had a dozen films under her belt, and her increasing influence on fashion was becoming apparent to the entire industry. A case in point was her 1950 marriage to millionaire Nicky Hilton in a fairy tale wedding that remains a landmark in bridal fashions.
Helen Rose had done Elizabeth's costumes from the time she was a child, and she designed the wedding gown in which Elizabeth married Nicky Hilton.
And that had a great effect on wedding fashions. It accentuated all the figure traits for which she was so well known, the lavish bosom and the tiny handspan waist. accentuated with full skirts and extremely fitted corsage.
2 weeks after her much-publicized marriage, Elizabeth appeared in Father of the Bride. The wedding dress was again crafted by MGM's top designer Helen Rose and was almost identical to the one Taylor had worn in real life. Emerging as a bona fide star, her private and public lives seemed to meld into a seamless web of glamour.
Oh, I can only tell you how much I love you.
Tell Mama. Tell Mama.
But it was 1951's A Place in the Sun that catapulted Taylor across the perilous gulf from child actress to adult star. In the film's most romantic scene, she wowed the fashion world in a strapless gown by legendary designer Edith Head. It was the utterly adult look she had been waiting for, and she was determined to make the most of it.
That extraordinary dress was being fitted until late into the night before filming because Elizabeth Taylor kept insisting that the waist be made smaller and smaller. When she appeared as this sort of doll-like vision with a tiny waist, I think that had a huge impact on the way young women wanted to dress.
It's truly, I think it's Elizabeth's coming-of-age film. Suddenly, this wasn't Elizabeth as a little girl anymore. This was Elizabeth the woman, this was Elizabeth the seductress.
Taylor epitomized the early 50s new look with her billowing skirts, soft shoulders, and the tiniest waist since Scarlett O'Hara. Young women everywhere struggled to attain that impossible handspan waist, and the so-called prom dress was worn by thousands of girls at high school dances. The most copied gown of the 50s, it became Edith Head's trademark design. Elizabeth had fought to retain her unique features, particularly her unfashionably heavy eyebrows. Thanks to her, they now became a signature look of the 50s. The fashion expertise that Elizabeth had struggled to achieve impressed even experienced designer Moss Mabry on the sweeping epic giant.
Is that Texas?
One day, Mabry dressed his star in a 1932 outfit, only to discover the scene they were shooting was to take place in 1927. The dress's hemline was all wrong, and the wardrobe experts were at a loss, but not Elizabeth.
Elizabeth said, "Don't worry, boys." She turns up the dress. She takes her fingernail and rips out the hem and drops it. So, of course, it's absolutely perfect. She never acted like a prima donna.
Elizabeth's ability to sell a garment on screen inspired Mabry to do some of his finest work.
My favorite design was in peak chiffon. And that is when she makes all of these turns and skirt just flows. And I think that dress was so right, and she looked so beautiful in it.
Are you rich?
No. Does that finish me off?
No, but it does slow us up a little.
By her mid-20s, Taylor was fast becoming one of the era's biggest stars. Earning her first Oscar nomination for Raintree County, she was also providing gossip columnists with a bonanza of old-fashioned Hollywood scandal. Playing a major role in her increasingly extravagant celebrity image were her off-screen fashions, especially her taste for sumptuous jewelry. Her third husband, producer Mike Todd, showered her with treasures, including a $25,000 diamond tiara that sealed her image as Hollywood royalty.
Mike Todd gave Elizabeth her first really important jewels, and I think he set her off on a kind of mania for diamonds. I believe he gave her a 29-carat square-cut ring. It was pretty darn spectacular.
Soon after the birth of a baby girl, Taylor returned to work in Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
I feel all the time like a cat on a hot tin roof.
Then jump off the roof, Maggie, jump off it.
Determined to sizzle on screen despite the era's restrictive censorship, she packed her hourglass figure into a skin-tight slip and in the process turned a once obscure undergarment into fashion dynamite.
I don't mind making a fool of myself over you.
Well, I mind. I feel embarrassed for you.
feel embarrassed. But I can't live on this way.
Now, you agreed to accept that condition.
I know I did, but I can't.
She is dressed throughout most of the film, but what we remember most is the silk slip. And you gotta remember, this is the 50s, and seeing people in their underwear was still a big thing.
And the image of Elizabeth Taylor in that slip is an enduringly potent one. I would say that would have had a huge effect on contemporary wardrobes.
I think there were a lot of girls that ran around in their slips in front of their husbands and boyfriends and everything else after that.
In the midst of filming, Taylor received her life's most crushing blow when Mike Todd was killed in a plane crash. But a consummate professional, as well as a determined survivor, she trooped back to work.
Maggie the cat is alive! I'm alive!
And her astonishing performance won her a second Oscar nomination. By now, Taylor's determination was paying off in ways the former child star could hardly have imagined.
Sebastian only needed you while you were still youthful.
After winning a third Oscar nomination for Suddenly Last Summer, she again wowed the fashion world.
Oh, face it, Mama. I was the
This time as high-class call girl Gloria Wondrous in 1960's Butterfield 8. In the process, she just happened to invent the modern slip dress.
And, that's really the beginning of the slip dress as we know it today, and everybody now is wearing these sort of embellished slip dresses.
You're all alike, aren't you? Play tough.
I'm not like anyone. I'm me.
And Elizabeth did it first and with more style than anyone.
Nominated a fourth time for Butterfield 8,
Elizabeth Taylor.
she finally won the Academy Award for Best Actress, dazzling the audience in a spectacular gown, despite the fact that she had just been critically ill.
For this and for everything, I guess all I can do is say thank you. Thank you with all my heart.
Elizabeth Taylor's screen allure and fashion presence were so unique and so appealing that she now leaped over stars like Doris Day, Marilyn Monroe, and Audrey Hepburn to become the top female star in America. Fresh from her triumph in Butterfield 8, Taylor would take on the most extravagant role in the most extravagant film in history, and reinventing the makeup and fashions of 2,000 years ago, she would help create the ultra-hip look of the swinging 60s.